Let's get this moved over a little bit. Okay, cool. So, who is in the mix here this morning? Good morning, Aladdin. Good morning, AR. Good morning, Navy Plum. Hope you all are doing well this morning. Good to see you here bright and early. Excuse me. Throat is always a little bit rusty in the mornings with this cold slash sinus infection slash whatever it is, but we're pushing right through it. What's up, Serge? The king of the Amazons. Cleaned up on the Amazon trade plan he requested on Tuesday. It played out perfectly yesterday. So let's start getting some of those charts set up. Actually, like I said, I am running a tad bit behind this morning. So we had Amazon, PLTR, CoreWeave, UNH. I'm just watching because it's getting to some interesting potential long-term buy shares levels. HIMS is also another interesting one. All right, cool. So let's talk about what we're seeing here on ES and the markets. Oh, yes, thank you, Navy Plum. There we go. Screen sharing should be up. I appreciate you calling me on that. Like I said, I've literally just tried to get everything running like 90 seconds before the clock struck 8:30. So I'm scrambling a little bit, but I appreciate you keeping an eye on me and making sure I am taking care of all the things I need to take care of. So what are we seeing here on ES? We've had a pretty decent pullback. That pullback has been recovered for the most part. However, we are now starting to run into the key sell pressure on NTS here on the hourly chart. So that is showing some signs of resistance already here this morning. Let's take a look at our levels though. See if there's one below which pullbacks look a lot more appealing. And I would say to me, it looks like it could be either 63.94 or 63.89. So let's shoot for the farther target so we know everything's totally out of the way. I'd say below 63.89. Definitely looks like we could see another pullback. Most likely, I'd say, yeah, most likely close to 63.58. Go ahead, mark a little level on there, a little placeholder level for that, so I know what I'm talking about when we look at this chart next time. So 63.58 looks like a good pullback target, and then below that, I'd say clearly that 63.33 level would all be good spots to watch for either A, scaling out any short or bearish positions, or B, starting to potentially load up on equities again. And then clearly to the upside, if we get a break out of this bear flag here on NTS, I think we can make a push toward all-time highs, which for ES is actually just slightly higher than the prior all-time high, 10 points higher by the looks of it. Well, maybe a little bit more than 10 points. It's probably sitting right about there. But certainly a range of resistances there that I would be keeping an eye on. So 64.75 up to 64.69. Wait, did I say 64.75? I meant 64.57. On up to 64.69. So overall, things looking, I would say, neutral to still leaning a little bit bearish. Again, overall, NTS is bearish. Do have bullish momentum. SMAs are really kind of a non-factor right now in that they're basically flat and just barely holding the bullish setup on those, as far as the 200 still being over the 333. So yeah, still pretty neutral, which kind of falls in line with August seasonality generally after a election year, generally being neutral to bearish. So no real surprises there that we're starting to see that in the month of August, right? I've talked about that several times leading up to this month. So it could be a good month to just wait and watch and see if we get some good pullbacks to start loading up shares for the last 4 months of the year. So anyway, keep an eye on things, but we've got the levels to watch. And again, I would say your break to really confirm that we're probably going to go to the upside, it would be 64.29 before we start shooting for some of those all-time high levels. All right, so let's get to our trade plan recaps, and then we'll work on some new trade plans. So for those of you who are here in the mix already this morning, please feel free to go ahead and start dropping your ticker requests or questions or whatever you got for me this morning. Feel free to start dropping all those in the chats. I will start working on those as soon as we get through these recaps. Iron. I've never heard of Iron. I'll take a look at it. All right. So, I should check one thing here. That's what I thought. All right. Trade play. Okay, whatever. I've made some adjustments to where this is still actually resistance. So, anyway, long story short, let's take a look at Amazon on the 15-minute here just so we can see how this played out and how we got confirmation that this one was going to make a move to the upside off of our call entry level. Excuse me. Over 215.29. So we see things trying to push here this morning, struggling with that resistance right there shortly out of the gates, and then we get our candle to close above the call entry, and then we get our back test candle that starts pushing up and takes us all the way to PT1. A little bit of pullback off PT1, runs all the way up to PT2, where it basically just pauses for a candle, and then all the way up to PT3. So all three targets hit within the day. Overall, an almost actually a $6.70 move from the call entry to the third price target. If you caught that back test, if you caught things pretty close to that back test, but the plan played out absolutely perfectly. We can't ask for these to play out any better than this, where you literally get your breakout, your back test, and all targets hit within the day with very few pullbacks, maybe more of just a couple little pauses or resistance checks along the way as it moves to the upside. So Amazon played out beautifully. I wish every trade plan played out that perfectly, but again, we're looking for profits, not perfection, when we're setting up these plans. We also did PLTR, not quite as impressive as Amazon. I mean, certainly very profitable, but not flying through all the targets within the day as soon as it makes that break and back test. Here we see our break above, a little bit of a dip down close to a back test. Doesn't quite hit our back test level there, but again, seeing those pullbacks and seeing them get bought up, great sign that confirmation is coming, especially on the 15-minute chart, which is what I've got my charts at to now. So from there, it ran all the way up very close to PT1. For some reason, stalled just shy of it, but now has gapped up after the wrapping up the after-hour session, and is consolidating right up against PT1 there at 181.35, which is this? Yeah, I think this is all-time highs on Palantir, right? Yeah, it is. So there you go, folks. I mean, we called this level Tuesday, right? PLTR had never seen it before in the history of its trading on the NASDAQ, New York Stock Exchange, and consolidating right up against a level that it's never tested before. That is proof in the pudding that when you do those trend-based fib extensions correctly, I know we've covered those in a few of these live streams in the past. When you do them correctly, even though they are nothing more than a really good educated guess, if you're doing them correctly, they can be pretty darn accurate at finding levels that we've never tested before. So here we see it right there, PT1 on PLTR. Absolutely nailed. That's a level I'm sure I've had on my chart for, I would think, a while, or at the very least since Tuesday. Forget if I did a new set of fib extensions on Tuesday or not, but again, my brain is still a little bit foggy from being a sick boy. So anyway, PLTR playing out wonderfully, also to the upside. So that's 2 for 2 on trade plans from Tuesday. And here we have CoreWeave starting to break out, starting to look good. It did give us a confirmed break. Let's get this on the 15-minute here, actually. Did give us some confirmed breaks there Tuesday, broke above. That looks like a good back test candle. Everything's trending bullish, but for some reason just didn't hold up. However, that's why we have stop loss average down levels. We got our dip down right to the stop loss average down level, and from there yesterday we have bounced, and now we're back up over the call entry. So make sure that you are following these plans to a T. There is a reason the stop loss average down level exists. I am not I am not a proponent of averaging down the way I think too many traders tend to do it, which is just keep averaging down and averaging down with no real plan or thesis behind it. My viewpoint on it is if you do it again, what I think is the right way, which is having your stop loss also be your average down level, because it's a strong enough level that could move things back in your favor if your entry was bad, or your plan just, you got faked out or whatever the case might be. Again, there's all kinds of reasons that things just don't start running to price targets as soon as we get a break of a call or put entry level. But having that stop loss average down level is critical for those times where that isn't the case. And if you're selecting those levels correctly, you see exactly what we're seeing here on CoreWeave, where it does push things back in your favor, so you can add to your position at that point. What you're also doing by doing that and having it be a stop loss average down level is if you add there, but then you confirm a break of that key level from your plan right after you add to it, you're stopping out, right? The difference is that you're not adding and then letting it go down another 30% with a bigger position than you even started with. It should create very minimal additional exposure to a red trade if you are using that stop loss level, or if you're averaging down at your stop loss level, right? Essentially, you're not really throwing too much more gas on the money fire. For some reason, your plan hasn't played out as optimally as we would like them to, which is, give us a break of the call or put entry and then start hitting some price targets with very little, pushback along the way. That's the ideal scenario, but I think we all know, anybody who's been doing this for any length of time, rarely do we get the ideal scenario when it comes to trading. So just have to be steadfast and robotic about focusing on charts and executing plans, and just literally wash, rinse, repeat, and keep doing the same things over and over again. Once you find a system that is generating consistent results and most importantly generating profits. Let's see, what's up, Chris? Good morning to you, a wise guys. I like that, a wise guys. What's up, wise guys? Good to see you here. PSSC, Trading Dads jumped in the mix. New trader, Mike DB. Good to see everybody here. Hope you all are doing very well. All right, so let's get to some new ticker requests. Serge in here bright and early with Iron. What's up, wise guys? JT Dubs. I appreciate that. All right, let's take a look at Iron, which I've never heard of before, I should say. Iron, what do you do? Technology services. Data center, powering the future of Bitcoin AI with renewable energy. Out of Australia. Our good friend Hasselhoff is originally from. Good volume on this name. Ran 11% yesterday. This is an interesting ticker I have never heard of. Very cool. All right, let's go. First things first, let's get some levels on this guy. Indicators. Set up. All right. You said futures are moving up. I didn't look at the jobless claims number. That's a good point. I forgot we had that coming out this morning. Like I said, I'm a little bit behind schedule this morning, but let's check it out. Jobless claims 226, previous was 219, consensus was 221. So jobless claims came in a little high. Labor costs quarter over quarter went up quite a bit. No, I'm sorry. I read those columns wrong. Labor costs quarter over quarter are up higher than the consensus, but much lower than the previous reading. Although that may be because of a bump in having to replace cheaper migrant labor with something else. Also, reminder, we do have Fed speakers at 10 o'clock this morning, actually at 10 and 10:20, and wholesale inventories at 10. So we do have some data points running up through 10:30 today. That's also worth being mindful of. But yeah, jobless claims came in higher than expected and higher than the previous reading. Yeah, I don't think it's going to pump things much. I think it's pretty neutral reading there. All right, so will the tariffs make the market dump today? Yeah, I don't know. That's my best answer for that. I wish I had a better answer. The market does not seem to react nearly as violently as it has to some of these previous tariff, threats. I guess is probably the best word for it in the past. I think, I think the street traders have started to adjust their algorithms to taco mode, where they're not really taking anything said about tariffs seriously until, something actually goes into effect. Not this date in the future is when these tariffs are going to go into place, and then that date shows up and it's like, we're going to give it 2 weeks, we're going to give it 2 weeks, we're going to give it 2 weeks. Very much the boy who cried wolf in regards to Trump and tariffs. So yeah, I think the market's starting to be desensitized to anything that is not, tariffs start today and there's no changing it, and it's going to be this X percentage, which, that's the other factor of it, is what the percent tariff is. If it's something that, I would say is in the sub 20% range, market's probably gonna brush it off, and if anything might move up because there's no more uncertainty around that particular issue. Markets hate uncertainty. But the other thing I would say is, if it is a big number, that the market fears will create longer term issues economically for the United States, then you will see the market react the opposite direction. I think that's, oh shit, that is a weekly. That's, wow. Okay, it's a really interesting level to watch there, 21.49. All right, I wasn't expecting it to work out like that. And then let's mark off this IPO current all-time high, just so we know where that's sitting at. All right, cool. Let's start digging into these smaller time frames a little bit here. I do want to check what's going on back here through these ranges. Nothing really useful back there. Same thing here. Maybe we need to see them both at the same time. I'd be wondering about this. Yeah, not really. Nothing I would feel confident about marking off as a daily level, so we're going to leave that alone. Something hanging out right about actually I think it's more like right there. Yeah. A nice daily level hanging out there for us. Let's yeah, that looks good. All right, I think that'll work as far as daily levels go. Again, I don't see anything all back here that says let's mark these two levels. These are very, very iffy, so I am not going to bank on these turning into any real significant support resistance levels, but let's see, maybe I'm wrong. This does look like a decent 4-hour level, actually. Yeah, for sure. And this, again, still looks quite iffy to me, that level up there, just shy of our next weekly resistance. Yeah, it's going to be darn near impossible to figure out where any levels are up in this space, so we might do something a little bit different. We might throw a trend-based fib extension off this recent high here, off that 2149 resistance. Even though that's not all-time highs, there's not really any discernible support or resistance levels that I can see above 2149 and 2822, at least not on the 4-hour time frame or the weekly or the daily. What up, Chris? That was a sneeze. God bless you. Oh boy! All right. I don't know why I'm even fishing out that.
Hot mic.
Hot mic.
Sorry, guys.
It's all good, brother.
Always happens to me. Good morning, guys. Good morning.
Good morning. Good to hear from you.
Sure.
All right.
Go on, go on.
Oh, you're good, buddy. You're good. All right, so let's get to the hourly chart. Let's start to nail some of this stuff down. I don't want to get too bogged down on one trade plan and just trying to get my bearings on this. Things just breaking out to the bullish side with that big pump yesterday. There is an interesting level. Yeah, right around here. 1850-ish. That might become useful. Let's do that looks pretty good. Yeah, there's a couple of levels that are kind of right here that certainly the price action can get stuck between. So that's important to know. We don't want things to get stuck if we can avoid it. All right, let's start figuring out a plan on this. From the looks of it to me, based on this move that's already taken place, I don't think we really open up a bunch of upside room or a decent window of opportunity until we can break over 1934. I would one make a small adjustment to that there. Yeah, that looks good. Excuse me. That'll make for a good stop loss. I think we have to take profit up here at 2092, and then here comes this kind of a different way of doing trend-based fib extensions. Question is, and let's hide our indicators again for just a moment. Higher lows, higher lows, higher lows, still higher lows, now equal lows, then a lower low. And then it's really been higher lows from there. Okay, so our trend in my opinion really starts here. I take it up to there. This is actually a little bit higher. Let's do that again. Sorry. So we do have that potential rejection there at 21.51. Yeah, I think we have to take some profit there too. I know it seems like they're tight price targets, but we're talking about something that trades in the double digits, so a 60-cent move is like 3% on a $20 ticker. Roughly, rough numbers. And then I think our next shot's right there at 22.27. But let's go ahead and get the rest of these fib levels on here, and then we'll get through our downside trade plan. Apologies if I've kind of gotten stuck on this one for a minute, but it is a really interesting name, and I want to make sure that we've got, and it has great volume on it right now. I want to make sure we've got a solid plan in place. Sometimes that just takes a little bit more time than others, depending on what chart we're looking at. All right, where does downside start to get intriguing? I say clearly it gets interesting below 17.43. I'd also say we could have a good stop loss here at 18.02. Whoops. First target, 1661. Second target is a level I have not marked yet, but it is sitting right here. There we go, at 1592. And then below that, I think we can take a shot for this daily level down here at 1476. All right. So that's how you put a trade plan together, folks. Let's get this dialed in. For 2092, 2152, and 2227. Stop loss averaged out at 1849. Put entry 1743, 1661, 2, and 1476. Stop loss at 1802. All right. Go. I'm sure we're going to need to adjust. Oh, turn indicators on. Yeah, like I said, I'm sure we're going to need to adjust this Y offset on these levels. Let's get this. There we go. Yep, that looks good. All right, now we ready? Let's go. Let me mark our start line. Copy image, copy link. All right, here it is. And get this in the chat. Let's get this locked in here. And let's get our alerts set. Cool. Looks good. All right, so what are we looking for here on IREN? Actually, one more thing before I forget. What are we looking for here on IREN? We are looking for a break over 1934 that should open up room to the upside to 2092, 2152, and 2227 with a stop loss average down at 1849. To the downside, we're looking for a break below 1743 that should give targets at 1661, 1592, and 1476 with a stop loss average down at 1802. Those are your IREN trading plans. Let's go. All right, let's get back to the stream here. And what did we have next? Meta, shop. All right, let's see. Let's take a look at some of these charts. I'm only going to have time for one more, I can already tell. And this is all-time highs for Meta. Giant bull pennant up here. What were the other ones? Shop. IWM might be an interesting one to take a look at. Let's go through these real quick though. I feel like we've consistently done well when we've planned IWM, but let me just take a look at these names real quick, see what. Shop just reported earnings, reported great earnings. If you're in short positions, I say take profit. This is RDNT. Hmm. All right, I gotta pick one. What is herb? Herb's too low volume. Wise guys, I want to generally look for things that trade pretty well from a volume perspective. So we're gonna take that one off the list. All right, let's go with. I don't, Meta's at all-time highs is my only concern there. Shop just had ER. Let's take a look at ASTS. That's a good name. Had a good pullback. It's run hard. I made a ton of money on shares on this one. I think it's got a lot of potential. So I'm gonna, cherry pick this one this morning. My apologies. I don't mean to leave anybody out or skip anybody, but I think this one just probably has the best possible setup for us. So let's take a look. Do need to add some levels to this chart. I've been trading these trend-based fib extensions for a while. Yeah, I mean, it just absolutely exploded once it got over 35. All right. A lot on this weekly chart, but yeah, volume bias, I guess, bias is an okay word for it. It's just, for support resistances to break and for us to get real good price action, especially on the option side of things, we need good volume. And generally speaking, my rule is anything sub 5 million on the 30-day average is probably going to be tough to trade or put you in a potential spot to wind up having to deal with a lot of theta burn and potential range bound price action. So that's the reason why I'm a little bit more why I think volume is important to have. No, oh yeah, anything sub 5 mil we want to avoid. Anything 5 million plus on the 30-day volume average. And for me, if I'm running a scanner, I actually run for scans that are doing over 10 million. I mean, that's kind of the real preferred number, but I think, there can be opportunities found and you can get good price action below that for sure. This is a really interesting triple bottom. It's not showing up as really anything else on the daily, but we're going to want to take a look, keep our eye on that. That's what I was trying to say. There is something right about there. All right, let's get to the 4-hour chart here. Time is ticking away. Could be an interesting. Let's see if this plays out. Could it be right there? some sweeps below. Looks like there's a valid trend line there actually that ASTS is on as we speak. So that's kind of important to know. All right. Fill in these blanks. That's a bit iffy, but we'll keep an eye on it. All right. And some of these prior trend-based fib extensions have already mapped out some good support and resistance levels for us. Is an interesting one there. This double top is also somewhat interesting, and I don't think we have any historical price data anywhere close to that range now. Okay. Just wanted to make sure. All right, so minimal price data available, but that's okay. We can make it work. So, where does ASTS really start to look attractive? For me, I think it's over this 55.36 level. I think that opens up room to this 58.09. And then 60.53. All-time highs, basically. Slightly higher high there on that pre-market print. If we break through that, I gotta believe there's going to be enough momentum that this tiny little bit of a sweep there and this potential trend-based fib extension resistance aren't going to be huge factors. Sorry, I'm just looking at something. I'm wondering if something I did when I pulled these extensions down, though, that's where that should be. So we're gonna run with it. All right, 64.57. Ultimate price target on that upside. Stop loss average down right here at 52.69. Downside definitely below 50. Looks like it pulls back quite a bit more. Look to scale profits there at 47.22. So kind of filling in the blanks a little bit here, but yeah. And then at 44.78, ultimate target I'd say is this recent low. 42.53. Yeah, let's take a shot, see if it maybe gets a little bit of a liquidity sweep or something down to that level. All right. This is what our trade plan for ASTS looks like. Break over that 55.36 for targets at 58.09, 60.53, and 64.57. Downside 49.95, 47.22, 44.78, 42.41. Shared stop loss at 52.69. Oops. Yeah, a lot of things pointing to the upside, dipping back down into some really good buy pressure there on the 4 hour. Wonder what it looks like here on the hourly. Hourly agrees with our call entry, right? Over that, we start to break through any kind of real selling pressure there on the hourly chart. So, all right, let's go. Let's lock this in. Oh, I was glad you were able to join us as wise guys. Appreciate you being here. JR, Apple calls today. No, I would not chase an insane overnight pump. I haven't even looked at the Apple chart this morning. Let's take a quick look before I finish my point there. Yeah, I would not chase calls up there. This is played out to the call side of the plan all the way up to PT2 already. I'd wait for some kind of really good pullback. All right, and for YouTube, here's the ASTS live stream plan. Let's go to the elite chat. So, all right, I think we're ready to go. So what are we looking for here on ASTS Space Mobile? We are looking for a break over 55.30. Actually, let me tighten these up a little bit. I mean, you guys can see them fine on the chart, but that's a little bit. That's better. All right, so what are we looking for here on this ASTS trade plan? We're looking for it to break over 55.36. That should give confirmation for more, for more room to the upside. That should take us up to 58.09, 60.53, and 64.57 with a stop loss average down at 52.69. To the downside, we're looking for a break below 49.95. That should bring targets at 47.22, 44.78, and 42.41 with a shared stop loss average down with that upside trade plan there at 52.69. All right, that puts us. What's up, Thug Baby Yoda? Good to see you. Good morning. I cannot do the good morning Vietnam because my voice is still barely here. So, um, um, all right. With that, I want to thank everybody for joining me this morning. I do appreciate it. We will be back next Tuesday morning at 8:30 a.m. At which point I hope I am totally done with all this crap. Absolutely use those levels for stock purchasing. I do that all the time. Absolutely. And if you want to, depending on how you're doing it, you can use, for example, a call entry or, whatever it is you want to use as a potential buy entry. Oh, excuse me. And then use the other levels, like, if we're talking about buying shares, going long on them, and then running up to some of the price targets or resistances of the trade plan. You could A, close shares, or you could B, which is what I tend to do a little bit more often than not. You can look to sell covered calls at those resistance levels. That's kind of my personal approach, or how I like to do it. So, with that aspect of my um, trading, I should say. All right. So with that being said, again, we will be back next Tuesday morning at 8:30 a.m. I do want to thank you all so very much for joining me, taking some time out of your day to be here. We will be back. Wait, no, I already said that like 6 times. So, with that being said, as we always say here on the FOMO, oh, nope, that's not the name of this, on Chart Talk Live. Sorry. Brought to you by Xtrades. Play your trades, trade your plans. Go out there and get some green. Remember, we are looking for profits, not perfection. So keep those wins big, keep your losses small. I will see you all in the chats, and I will see you back here next Tuesday morning. Until then, take care. Spy plan coming at you here shortly. Have a great day.